We have finally reached the end of 2023, so that means it's kind of list season and recap season. And today we are beginning that with my top 10 least favorite films of 2023. This video has been a little bit of an effort to make. There has been a lot of circumstances kind of delaying this video, like a literal tornado tearing through our town. It did turn off the power for a while, but we're finally here. We are able to finally discuss my 10 least favorite films of 2023. So let's get into it. Firstly, before I get into the list, a couple of quick disclaimers. I have not seen every single film of 2023, and there are some doozies that I know were absolutely terrible this year, had no redeeming qualities by the looks of it, so guess what? I was not interested in seeing them. I do not get that many screeners. I have gotten one this entire year, so that means, like you, I am paying for my ticket. And if the film doesn't look interesting, I'm not going to spend my money on it. But these films, I have either spent money on the subscription service to watch it, paid for a theater ticket, or rented it. So there is a financial disadvantage here with these films, and that's what makes them disappointing, because for me to spend my money on them, I need to have at least some interest in it. So they're more disappointing than complete stinkers, apart from a couple. But with all that said, let's get into number 10 on this list. Kicking this off with Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Now, I have heard a lot of people saying that they were pleasantly surprised by this movie. I had no interest about this movie going into it, so I kind of missed this in the theater. I didn't really care enough to spend $30+ on watching this film. Eventually, this became available to rent, and I finally gave in and checked it out. And unfortunately, this didn't really resonate with me in any particular way. I am still at a loss to understand why people love this so much. This film is very generic. This doesn't have anything that stood out, became memorable, that made me have a good time with this film. I've forgotten so much about it because it's just generic. If you slapped an MCU coat of paint over this movie, that's exactly the tone and style that you're going for here. There's nothing different than any other generic blockbuster that I've seen in the last 10 years. There's quips that are just painfully unfunny. I don't think Chris Pine was particularly good in this film. I just did not enjoy it at all, I'm afraid. Another film that I think people kind of enjoyed, but once again, this was not made for me, and that's the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now, this film definitely resonated with a lot of fans of the whole Mario franchise, so kudos to you. If you're someone that loves this movie and you're a massive fan of Mario, don't let me take that away from you here. I'm not a fan of Mario. I never really have been. I've played like 1 or 2 games. So this isn't an IP that really interests me too much. But I checked the film out, and it's an Illumination movie. This film is solely really made for kids and long-term fans of the franchise. And if you don't fit in that box, I'm afraid this isn't that enjoyable of a movie. Mario is something that isn't really known for its narrative. The games have the exact same basic narrative every single time for 30 years. So it's a bit of a stretch to expect a really good narrative in the film. Unfortunately, a film relies on a narrative a lot more than a video game does. It doesn't have gameplay to back it up. And because of that, this just sank and relied on the most weakest element of Mario as a whole. And because of that, I had zero interest in this film. I was bored. The animation does look pretty, I'll give that to you, but as a narrative, as a film, it just doesn't work for me. You people, does anyone even remember that this film released? This came out at the beginning of 2023, and just because it had Jonah Hill in the film and was a comedy, I was instantly interested. I do think Jonah Hill is one of the best comedic actors of all time, and he's really great in a dramatic role too. I consider myself to be a fan, so anything that he is in, I'm usually quite drawn to. Unfortunately, this film is a massive stinker and feels like any other generic Netflix rom-com. It doesn't work at all. The comedy tries to rely on the culture wars very unsuccessfully. It doesn't really want to say anything new. It doesn't want to be provocative or interesting, even if the conflicting ideas in the film could spark some very interesting comedy. It just doesn't want to go there. It's not bold enough. It just exists to add more numbers to the Netflix streaming service. There's so little chemistry between our two leads. This is a rom-com, and the romance at the center of it all just fails on every single level. A lot of people know about how the kiss in the end of this film was CGI'd because they don't want to kiss on set in this film because they have that little chemistry. So You People was a massive disappointment, a massive underutilization of Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy, two great comedic actors that just aren't given that much to do. A poor screenplay, poor direction, and a film that I never want to revisit. Alright, this film I watched today, pretty much to put it on this list, and I wanted the best for it because the lead is one of my favorite actors out there right now. I'm talking about 65, the film starring Adam Driver. As I said, one of my favorite actors working today. I love this guy, and I am baffled as to why he picked this movie. This wants to fill a space in the whole Jurassic Park, dinosaurs trying to kill people, and trying to draw up a thriller that way, except this doesn't add anything new. It doesn't have anything interesting to say. It's not remotely entertaining, and this is going to be a theme that you're going to see throughout this list. When you focus a movie on monsters and you're not trying to be high art, I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck about the human characters. Why in these schlocky movies are they focusing so much on the human characters? I kind of know why. It's because they probably don't have the budget to create these monsters in these big scenes. Well, guess what, dumbass? You're making a movie about the monsters, so you have to go all in on the budget there. Otherwise, don't fucking do it. And I'm afraid 65 just doesn't want to go there enough. It's not interesting. It's so boring. I watched this today and I've forgotten about half of it already. And I'm baffled as to why Adam Driver picked to do this movie. This guy is giving all of these fantastic performances throughout the last 3, 4, 5 years. He's just such a consistent talent. So I'm sure that he can do a lot better than this, and he has. Alright, we're going into the failure of superhero movies now with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This film, I wasn't too interested in this overall, to be honest. It's an Ant-Man movie. I don't really care about Ant-Man, if I'm being honest with you, but they pegged this as the true beginning of Phase 5 and setting everything in motion for their future plans. And you had Kang in this. We know that that's not really going to go forward anymore. Overall, this failed in every single thing it wanted to do. The characters are not interesting at all. Kang is a pretty piss poor villain, if I'm being honest with you. He's drummed up to be the new Thanos threat, but he gets basically defeated by a couple of ants and Ant-Man. I mean, are we supposed to feel threatened by this guy if Ant-Man can just defeat him? I don't think so. And this film looks like a Spy Kids movie at best. This film has a godly amount of money behind it and the full backing of Marvel, and you have effects that just look disgusting. They look horrific. This thing is vomit in the background. I don't think any of these actors probably had a good time making this film because they're probably all alone with a green screen behind them doing it. There's no chemistry with the actors. The jokes fall flat. It just doesn't work on any single level. And I'm sorry, Marvel, but why the fuck are you hinging your big antagonist and setting everything up for the future in an Ant-Man movie? No one cares about Ant-Man. Let me get that straight. So why did you choose that? I don't know, a pretty dumb move and just a horrific way to start off this new phase in the MCU. Number 5 is Meg 2, The Trench. Now, I'm not too pretentious when it comes to these movies. I actually really enjoyed the first Meg because when you make a monster movie like this and it's just full of schlock, it knows what it is. It's just trying to be silly, goofy fun with a shark murdering people and other big sharks, and just having that big spectacle makes a fun popcorn flick. And I'm fully behind that. So I was expecting more of the same with the Meg 2, The Trench, but it just doesn't do that at all. It goes back to the problem that I mentioned in 65. Why the fuck are we focusing on human characters in a movie called The Meg 2? I want a big-ass Meg killing people in these movies. That is the whole point of it. So why are you restraining that so much and trying to focus on Jason Statham's relationship with his daughter that I didn't give a fuck about in the first movie and I don't give a fuck about now? You don't have compelling writers behind this to pull it off, so don't go for it. It's just so baffling that that's the direction they want to go in, and this had a good budget behind it too. And there's something really cynical about it. They put Wu Jing in a real prominent role because he's a big name in China, and they just wanted to earn money from the Chinese box office. It felt so cynical. It kind of made me sick to my stomach that you're doing that, and not for real reasons or trying to push for diversity and giving them meaningful arcs and making a meaningful character. No, you're just doing it so that Chinese people have a style that they recognize, so they'd be more willing to spend money on this shitty movie. Don't go check this out. Even if you love the first one, this is a pure waste of your time. It's just not fun at all and just so boring. There's some pretty cynically made movies on this list, but none really top this one. This is the White Man Can't Jump remake. I'm a massive basketball nut, okay? I absolutely adore the sport so much. And of course, I love the original White Man Can't Jump with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. It was such a great film, but I don't think it was good enough to remake. It's not like this classic that really needs an update. It works well for its time, and basketball nuts can still watch it today. It ages quite well in that regard. And this film wants to do its own little thing, have its own little spin on it all, and tries to have all these modern day references. You have Jack Harlow in the lead. What is he doing here? This is just so dumb and so cynical. It was uploaded on Disney Plus just for IP recognition. And it just is such an empty film. I watched this on a plane and I was suffering even more. It made my plane ride even worse watching this. Just garbage on every single level. And once again, I don't remember too much because it just doesn't do anything interesting. It tries to go into the whole and one street ball thing. It makes it a little bit more professional, and therefore it looks a little bit more corporate than the original White Man Can't Jump. All the heart and soul that that movie had, this just rips out to make a quick buck, and I just can't let that fly. This film is quite disgusting. Number 3, man, this is just getting sad. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, one of the last whimpers of the DCEU. I was a fan of this entire franchise. When Zack Snyder was getting it started, I was on board. I love Man of Steel. I like Batman v Superman. I like Zack Snyder's Justice League. I liked Wonder Woman. There was just so many exciting possibilities with this DCEU. And somewhere along the way, it just kind of lost what it really was trying to do. I think that happened when Aquaman made about $1 billion at the box office, and Warner Brothers went, that makes a lot of money. Let's just do more silly movies like that. And that's what this movie is. It tries to build off the first Shazam, which I didn't think was that interesting in the first place, but it was a lot better than this garbage. This is like every other superhero film that you've ever seen, with jokes that don't land. Zachary Levi was kind of trash in this role, a lot worse than the first one. And to see the way that he was begging social media to up the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and get more people to see it just came off really pathetic, to be honest with you, because you didn't have the excellent film to back it up. If this was an excellent film and you were pleading your case like that, sure, go ahead, but this just isn't that. I've seen this film a million times before, and once again, it just doesn't work. Number 2 is the epitome of a film that I had so much hopes for because I love these kinds of movies, but it just didn't work for me, and that is Cocaine Bear. This had all the makings of a cult classic. If this fully embraced its silliness, just focus on the bear killing people in just these lunatic ways, on cocaine, being nuts, being silly, having the same kind of energy as a schlocky Nicolas Cage movie, I would have been so here for this film. I would have been its biggest defender. But it doesn't want to do that. Why the fuck is Elizabeth Banks focusing on the human characters we don't give a fuck about for the Cocaine Bear? It racks my brain that these movies are deciding to do that. And all of the good kills that were in this film I'd seen before in the trailers, so there was just nothing in here apart from what I'd seen already that made me go, wow, this is such a fun movie. I cannot wait to check this out again with my friends, watch it again with my fiance, have a couple of drinks and have a laugh. This just doesn't want to do that. It just wants to be so boring. And I think this might have been Ray Liotta's last film before he passed away. And what a sad note to end it on. This, just a bad movie. I really don't know if Elizabeth Banks has what it takes to be a director. Sure, keep trying. You might hit a really good movie in the future, but this isn't it. It just doesn't want to be exactly what it is. It takes itself a little bit too seriously, which is strange for a movie called Cocaine Bear. One of the worst films of the year. I found this movie to be quite sufferable to me. Now, number 1, I'd been debating whether this would be my number 1. It's the only movie that I think I've actually gotten really mad about this year because I had high hopes for it. And that is The Flash. This movie is quite divisive. I know some people love it. I don't really understand why, to be honest with you. I think this movie is terrible on every single level, and I had expectations for this. Once again, I like what the DCEU was doing, and Zack Snyder's Justice League made the Flash look like a very interesting character, one of the most interesting in the entire Justice League. So of course seeing his follow-up film was something that I'd be interested in seeing, and seeing where this was going to go. You had all this hype. People were making this out like it was going to be the fucking return of Jesus. It was ridiculous. And then you hear all these things that this is going to be the thing that resets the whole DC universe and kind of sets it on the path it needs to go. If we build off this, where the fuck are we going? Because this is disgusting. This is such a cynical movie. It looks like amateur hour the whole way across. And there are some real disgusting moments in this film that made me sick to my stomach and made me quite angry. I think that the CGI firstly looks like garbage. I've seen Andy Muschietti and so many people defending it like, oh, the Flash is going fast and that's why it looks like that. Bullshit. It was half done. It looked like something worse than the Matrix Revolutions or something way back 20 years ago. But the thing is, they were limited back then. What the fuck are we doing now? I know this is the benchmark, but we have shit like Avatar, The Way of Water. Fuck, Avatar 1, 15 years ago looked better than this shit. Fucking, I've seen so many movies look way better than this, come out far earlier than this, so there's no excuse here. This film had the budget to do it, and it failed. The performances suck. There's really no one here that makes a real redeeming arc. They completely shit on Michael Keaton's Batman. As someone who quite likes Batman and Batman Returns and what Michael Keaton did with that role and really appreciates it, what they did with him here, just fucking stupid the whole way around. I was so mad watching this film because you're taking characters that people care about and characters that I care about, ones that I was raised on, and just pissing all over them to fit into your little template so you can try to make as much money as possible because you're trying to appeal to every single person. Well, guess what? Some of these characters aren't designed to appeal to every single person. Batman does appeal to everyone, but there are some that don't like him because there is a darkness to it that some don't like. And there's none of that here. This is once again just trying to be another fucking Marvel movie. Doesn't work in this format, and they don't do it as good as Marvel because they don't have the talent or the understanding of how to do their formula as good as them. You're never going to beat them at their own game. You need to do your own shit, and this doesn't want to do that. And the end of it all, just silly. I really just didn't like this movie at all. Now, some of the cameos that made me sick to my stomach, there are some like Nicolas Cage and all that. They're a bit goofy, I get that, and they look really stupid because it looks like, I don't know, there's nothing to compare it to. It just looks awful. It looks awful. It looks like something that I could make. And I'm sorry, I'm not a visual effects artist. I have no idea what I'm doing. But it looks like I could attainably do that shit. You had this cameo of Christopher Reeve, and it kind of brings about the thing that caused a lot of these strikes. And that's the use of AI and taking someone's likeness and putting in a film. Let me give you a little bit of news if you don't know. Christopher Reeve passed away around 2004. So he's been gone for a very, very long time. And if you know anything about him, he had kind of a hard life after Superman. He got paralyzed and had been in a wheelchair up until he passed away. So I find it very distasteful and very disgusting that you would use his likeness like that in a film so that some dumbasses in the cinema can go, oh, look at that, that's Superman, oh my god. No, that is bullshit. Do not ever do that. I found that appalling, disgusting, and you're just taking advantage of someone that passed away so that you can make a quick buck. Fuck that movie. I don't like anything that this film does. I don't like anything that it represents, and I'm glad that actors and writers are sticking up towards AI, especially actors, and using their likeness because it's disgusting and you're taking advantage of someone. I don't like that at all, and I'm so glad that they were able to work out a deal to end those strikes. Anyway, that is my list of the top 10 worst films of 2023. There are some stinkers for sure, and once again, I have not seen them all, but I would really love to know what you think are the 10 worst films of 2023. And what do you think of the list? I'm sure some of you are going to disagree, but this is solely my opinion. I'm not trying to be objective or anything like that. This is exactly how I feel, and that's it. That's all I'm going off here. But I really want to see your list. I'm sure they're wildly different from mine. Let me know in the comments below. I have plenty of lists coming up, like my most anticipated films of 2024. I've also got the second annual Eddy Awards, which I'm sure you know about now that I've mentioned it a bazillion times and have a trailer for it and everything like that. You can still vote for the People's Choice Award. Make sure to get those votes in soon though. I will be cutting it off very soon as I'm going to begin production. I've gotten everything kind of that I need to get started. So I have a couple of videos that I'm going to make first, and then I'm jumping straight into that. So make sure to get those People's Choice Award votes in, and we will have a winner for that award, as well as the entire Eddy Awards, which is basically my version of an Oscars. We're going to celebrate the best of cinema, and I cannot wait to do that with you all on January 10th. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.